Now, as a professional in the learning and development, training and education industry, one of the biggest objections or barriers to training that I come across every single day is the cost of training. A lot of training doesn't happen in organisations large and small because it's expensive. Well, one of the things that's not often looked at is the cost of not training. The cost of turnover, the cost of mistakes made by illy or poorly trained workers. Now, turnover is actually one of the highest expenses that particularly large organisations actually face. Now, according to my research, turnover can cost in excess of 150% of an employee's annual salary. I personally would argue that it's much higher than that. By the time we've had meetings to discuss particular job outcome or job description, what salary that person's going to give, how long we're going to have them for, then passed it on to a recruitment department or external company to then advertise the position, which of course costs money. We then have to go through the actual selection and recruitment process. So by the time we've had administrators go through all of the applications, shortlist them, then have senior executive management level staff or middle management staff then conduct the interviews, then decide which person they're going to conduct, go through the induction and training process, then they start working for you, but you then have your most experienced, qualified, knowledgeable and productive employees who have to stop doing what they're doing, i.e. stop being productive and efficient, to then start training the person that you're paying but still isn't earning money from you while they learn. You are actually paying out thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in order to bring a new person on board, which is why I say that this 150% of a person's annual salary, I think, is a significant underestimation of exactly what costs are involved of bringing somebody on. So when somebody says to me, you know, we can't afford that $1,000 or $2,000 training program or qualification, one of the things I say back to them is, can you afford to have the turnover? Can you afford to not actually have somebody trained to fill that position? Can you afford to recruit somebody new who already has that skill? Because actually the cost to train somebody, you will find, is way, way, way cheaper than recruiting somebody new. So I would always look at your existing pool of staff and workers who are already working for you, who are already loyal to you, who already know your working processes and procedures, and see if you can upskill or multi-skill those people rather than bringing new people on board to a significant expense of downtime and all of the other costs just mentioned. Now, to my American and UK and other people watching this course friends, my figures I've got here are based on Australia because that's where I'm presenting from right now. But the Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Western Australia stated that the current average turnover rate is about 18%. Now, when I say current, those figures were from last year. At time of filming this, it's 2015 right now. So to work out what your particular turnover rate is, you need to simply go through this particular formula. So how many employees do you have in your organisation altogether in the last 12 months? And how many of those actually left? So you would divide the number of people who left by the number of people you have within your organisation and times that by 100. That gives you your turnover rate. So you can base that on the Australian average, which is 18%. I don't know what it would be for your country. I'd love to know if you would like to send a comment or tweet what you found in your particular country if you're elsewhere. But it will give you a good benchmark, or an interesting one at least. So I hope that gives you some good ideas as to the importance of internal training, but also sort of something up your sleeve, I suppose, when it comes to presenting a case to senior management about the importance of actually running the internal training over the costs of not doing so. So just to back up your case for running training within your organisation, here are some nice quotes that I found. It increases performance. Where workforce development is effective, employee productivity can increase by 230%. In some companies, workforce development has reduced staff turnover by 70% and can lead to a return on investment of 7,000%. Can you imagine a 7,000% ROI on training your staff and conducting workforce planning? It really does happen because as people become good at their skills, because they become good at their job roles, they become much quicker at doing them. They can become much more efficient. And as I mentioned before, they actually become a lot more innovative in finding quicker, faster, more efficient ways of conducting that job to the same quality, if not higher, because that job has become so second nature to them. Of course, workforce planning and training can increase staff morale. It improves their dedication and their competence in their duties. The other argument we have is, what are the costs of not delivering training? This is really, really important because if, for instance, the training is on safety, the costs involved with somebody having an accident as a result of not being adequately trained obviously are going to be absolutely monumental in comparison to running a training session, especially if we find ourselves in a case of negligence where somebody has even died. These all can be avoided through appropriate training. And of course, it's not just restricted to safety. There are a number of mistakes and errors and embarrassments that can be caused by a poorly trained workforce, all of which can be saved by putting the right training in place. And of course, we have a flow-on effect of reduced costs over time due to good practice and staff commitment. And all of this information came from Carl Drucker, a quote I found from 2010.